All right, hello, welcome back for the Star Trek Rewatch, where every Thursday I watch an episode of Star Trek the original series and then come to talk with you about it here afterwards. As always, I'll be reading the entry from Ellen Asherman's Star Trek Compendium, filling in kind of like things that I think are important or that I would like to comment on that Ashman leaves out. So let's just get right into it. This is our penultimate episode. Next week, that's it. It's a wrap. Then we'll move on into the feature film. So, all our yesterdays. Writer was Jean Lisette. I don't even know how you say this. Aroste? Aroiste? Whatever. Sorry, writer. The director was Marvin Chomsky. Stardate 5943.7, beaming down to the planet Sarpedan, about to be engulfed in the explosion of its sun. It's about to go nova. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy discover a huge library. Now, it says beaming down to Sarpedon. This is a weird episode because we never actually get any scenes that take place aboard the Enterprise. They all take place on the planet's surface. And all we see is Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. We don't see any other crew members in this episode. Now, we hear the voice of Scotty over the, communicator talking to Kirk, but yeah, this is like there aren't anybody else around from the crew in this one. Okay, so they beam down to this planet. They discover a huge library. The librarian, Mr. Ataz, has supervised the transferal of his race into Sarpedon's past by the use of a machine called the I'm going to butcher this Aditavacron. I'm not going to say that again. That was painful. At the library's invitation, Kirk and Spock begin to examine various historical eras using the machine. So they've got these like discs that they're putting in some kind of like viewer, and they're able to like see, you know, various scenes from the past, I guess, on displayed on these silver discs. Let's see here. When the captain hears a woman scream, he leaps to her aid through the Atitavrakan's. And I said I wasn't going to say it again. That thing, the portal. Okay, it jumps through the portal. Um, Spock and McCoy, attempting to follow, unintentionally entered Sarpedon's ice age, where they meet a beautiful exile, Zarabeth. She comes in like all in I guess like a really heavy robe type thing, like a fur coat. McCoy is basically freezing to death. Um, Zarabeth comes to help them, and there's like a big reveal where at first she's standing there, don't realize that it's a woman until she takes off the jacket or the garment that she's wearing, and then she's like dressed like I don't know, like a 1960s cave woman. You know what I mean? It's her costume is pretty silly considering the how cold it's supposed to be. Um, Whatever. Anyways, there is Kirk. Meanwhile, in the other place where he's at, right, this is kind of like a I don't know 17th century England looking location. Um, he's talking to Spock and McCoy initially, and this lady overhears it because Spock or Kirk gets into like a fencing duel with a couple of these guys that are dressed up like the three musketeers. And then when he goes to the portal, the lady hears him conversing or talking with McCoy and Spock. He can't see them, but they're speaking through evidently the library somehow is making it possible to communicate. And she accuses him of talking to spirits. So yeah, basically Kirk's accused of being a witch, and he's imprisoned. Meanwhile, McCoy is like nursed back to health. Spock is falling in love with Zarabeth. He's finding himself grow more and more emotional and reverting to the ways of his Vulcan ancestors. So Spock starts to get really short with McCoy, and McCoy reasons that since it's 5,000 years in the past, right, that the Vulcans that are living in this time um, somehow is having an impact on Spock. Now, we have seen Spock have, in an earlier episode, some sort of psychic connection to the Vulcans. When the Intrepid was destroyed, Spock, I can't remember the name of that episode. What was that? Um, yeah, it was, he felt or sensed the Vulcan crew, the ship of all Vulcans, he sensed them being eliminated. That was the one where they fought the giant amoeba thing in space, I think. So evidently, because he's in the past and the Vulcans are in a primitive state, he's kind of feeding off of that, I guess, and reverting through some sort of psychic link into, like prehistoric Vulcan. So he's becoming emotional. He gets really short with McCoy. He eats meat, even though he's a vegetarian. And then he's just, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I guess that's really it. He gets really emotional and he eats meat, and then he tells Zarabeth like she's beautiful, and he's like, "What's going on with me? I've lost who I am." It's pretty crazy. Anyways, Zarabeth tells Spock and McCoy that they cannot return to the present without dying. But she's erroneously assumed that they were prepared, and Kirk wasn't prepared either. Evidently, Mr. Atos has to do something to them biologically to accommodate them to living in their new environment. Find out that Zarabeth is like a political exile or a prisoner who was sent into this place punishment, and she's been alone the whole time. That's why she has like this connection with Spock, because she's lonely. Anywho, um, Captain Kirk manages to escape with the aid of another traveler in time, the guy that's his prosecutor, or I don't know, attorney or whatever. Kirk starts talking about the library, and the guy's like, "The library?" And Kirk's like, "Yes, you know about it." So he goes to the place where he came through the portal, and this dude's going to help him go back, telling him, "Look, if you weren't prepared, you're only going to live for a couple of hours." It's probably one of the aspects of this episode that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This sun's going to go nova in like 3.5 hours or something like that. And it sure seems like they're in these portals for a lot longer than 3 hours. So maybe the writer should have said the sun's going to go nova in 3 days or something, because Spock falling in love with Zarabeth in just a matter of a couple of hours, even though he's reverting to a primitive state, seems kind of far fetched. Other than that, I really like this episode, but that is one critique that I have. So, Kirk gets back into the library, and then he talks to Mr. Ataz and several of Ataz's android duplicates there. They fail to return Kirk back to the past. So I guess they're trying to stick Kirk back in the thing, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But he's persistent. Gets Mr. Ataz to help him find the correct disc that Spock and McCoy used to go back. McCoy has a confrontation with Spock. Zarabeth basically saying, "This woman would tell you anything that you want to hear, or anything to keep you here, basically, and you're just giving up, and we have to try." And so they go and they look for the portal. Meanwhile, Kirk is like shouting into the portal at the same time, gets the correct disc. They hear each other. Finds out that they have to return through the portal at the same time in order for it to work. Okay. Zarabeth remains behind, alone forever in the past. And at the last second, Ataz leaps through the portal, already prepared, so that he survives the Nova explosion. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beamed up to the Enterprise, and the last scene we see is the Enterprise flying away as the star explodes. So, yeah, I thought this was a pretty decent episode. You've got Zarabeth and Spock and McCoy here in the cave. Um, there is Kirk in the library with Mr. Ataz. So the female Zarabeth here was played by Mariette Hartley. Says that she was a regular in the Hero television series and Peyton Place, and was also she co-starred in Gene Roddenberry's 1973 television pilot film Genesis 2. She was in the Twilight Zone episode The Long Morrow, where she played a young woman alienated from her astronaut fiance. Um, for me, Mariette Hartley, what I remember her from is the Sam Peckinpah Western, Ride the High Country. Okay, she's in that with Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea. She's the young girl there in that film. So that's where I recognized her from. But this episode's got a couple of tie-in novels, spin-offs, whatever. They were written by A.C. Crispin. There's actually a sequel to this episode called Yesterday's Sun. So the premise of this is that Spock got Zarabeth pregnant. I guess they did the hanky panky in the 3 hours he was there, and he has a child. Okay, named Czar, whom he meets. There's also a sequel to this book, okay, where Spock returns again to the past to meet up with Czar. So these were both written by A.C. Crispin. So this is the direct sequel, and then this is the sequel to that. Pretty interesting Star Trek stories. I enjoyed them. I think that they're some of the better Star Trek novels that I've read. Again, Yesterday's Sun and Time for Yesterday, both written by A.C. Crispin. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one, other than what I've already said. I enjoyed this one. I think it's probably one of the better episodes of season 3. It'd probably be like in my top 5 episodes for this season. So, yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to say about it. Next week we will have Turnabout Intruder. Let me know what you think about this one below. And thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.